My name is Julia, and I am 34 years old. 3 weeks ago, I gave my younger brother the greatest gift I have ever given anyone in my entire life: a house worth $880,000. I signed over the deed with trembling hands and a heart full of hope. Yesterday, my mother called to tell me I was not invited to his wedding. She said my presence would make things complicated. After everything I sacrificed, I became the one they wanted to hide. Before I share what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. If stories about family betrayal and finding your own strength speak to you, please hit that like button and subscribe to join this community. Now let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everyone knows your business, and front porches hold decades of secrets. My father Richard worked as an electrician. His hands were always rough calloused from years of pulling wire through walls and fixing things that other people broke. My mother Carolyn worked part-time as a nurse at the local clinic. She smelled like antiseptic and lavender lotion, and she had a way of making everyone feel cared for. Everyone except me, it seemed. Our family had 4 members. There was my father, my mother, myself, and my younger brother Derek, who came into this world exactly 4 years after I did. From the moment he arrived wrapped in a blue blanket, with the tiniest fingers, I had ever seen something shifted in our household. I remember standing on my tiptoes to peer into his crib, feeling a strange mixture of curiosity and something I could not name. I did not know then that his arrival would define the rest of my childhood. We were not wealthy, but we were comfortable enough. We lived in a 3-bedroom house with a backyard that needed mowing every 2 weeks in summer. My father drove a pickup truck that he kept running through sheer determination and spare parts. My mother clipped coupons and stretched every dollar until it begged for mercy. We had enough, but there was never extra. At least that is what they told me. The favoritism started so early that I cannot pinpoint its exact beginning. It was simply always there, woven into the fabric of our daily life, like an invisible thread that everyone pretended not to see. Derek never had to make his bed. Derek never had to clear the table after dinner. Derek never had to fold the laundry or sweep the kitchen floor. Those tasks fell to me because I was the older one, because I was the girl, because that was simply how things were. I remember being 8 years old and asking my mother if I could take piano lessons. There was a second-hand piano at the community center, and Mrs. Henderson offered lessons for $15 per session. I had watched other children play their fingers dancing across black and white keys, creating something beautiful out of nothing. I wanted that magic for myself. My mother shook her head without looking up from the dishes she was washing. "We do not have money for that, Julia. Maybe someday." Someday never came. But the following Christmas, Derek received a deluxe gaming console that cost over $300. I watched him tear open the wrapping paper, his face glowing with excitement, while I sat with my modest gifts of practical clothes and school supplies. When I looked at my mother, she was watching Derek with such pure joy that I felt like an intruder witnessing a private moment. I excelled in school because it was the one arena where my efforts produced measurable results. I earned straight A's, made the honor roll every semester, and won the spelling bee 3 years in a row. My parents nodded when I showed them my report cards, my father mumbling something about expectations, while my mother tucked the papers into a drawer without ceremony. When Derek barely graduated high school with a C average, they threw him a party. They invited neighbors, bought a cake from the fancy bakery downtown, and my father made a toast about his son becoming a man. I stood in the corner of our living room, holding a paper plate of food I could not taste, wondering what I had done wrong. Birthdays were another reminder of where I stood. Derek's birthdays were events planned weeks in advance, with themes and decorations, and guest lists that grew longer each year. He had clowns and bounce houses, and once for his 12th birthday, a magician who pulled a rabbit from a hat. My birthdays were afterthoughts. Some years my mother remembered to buy a cake from the grocery store. Other years, she forgot entirely, and I would blow out candles stuck into a hastily assembled plate of brownies. One year when I turned 14, no one mentioned my birthday at all until I was already in bed that night. My mother knocked on my door and handed me a card with $20 inside. Sorry, honey. It slipped my mind. You know how busy things get. I knew. I always knew. But the moment that shattered something inside me, the memory that I carry like a scar hidden beneath my skin, happened when I was 16 years old. I had spent the entire summer working at a local ice cream shop. I scooped countless cones, mopped sticky floors, and smiled at customers until my cheeks ached. I saved every penny because I had a goal. There was a used bicycle at the pawn shop downtown, a blue 10-speed with slightly worn tires and a basket on the front. It cost $120, and I dreamed about riding it to school, feeling the wind in my hair and the freedom of movement beneath me. On the last day of August, I walked into that pawn shop and counted out my crumpled bills and jangling coins. The owner smiled at me as he handed over the bicycle, and I rode it home feeling like I had conquered the world. I had earned this. It was mine. The bicycle lived in our garage for exactly 11 days. Derek wanted it. He had seen me riding around the neighborhood, and he decided that he wanted a bicycle too. He was 12 years old, perfectly capable of working for what he wanted, but Derek had never worked for anything in his life. I came home from school to find my father wheeling my bicycle out of the garage. Derek stood beside him, grinning. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice higher than I intended. My father did not even look at me. "Derek needs a bike, and this one is perfect for him. You are his big sister, Julia. You should want to share." I earned that, I said. "I worked all summer. That is my bicycle." My mother appeared in the doorway, her arms crossed over her chest. "Do not be selfish, Julia. Family shares with family. You can save up for another one." I opened my mouth to argue, to scream, to demand the justice I deserved. But I saw the look in my father's eyes, the same look he always had when Derek wanted something. It was the look that said this conversation was already over. I went to my room and cried until my pillow was soaked. I cried for the bicycle, yes, but I cried for something much larger that I could not articulate. I cried because I understood finally and completely that in this family, I would always come second. I would always be the one expected to sacrifice, to step aside to make room for Derek. That night, lying in the darkness with dried tears on my cheeks, I made myself a promise. I would work harder than anyone. I would build a life so successful, so undeniable, that my family would have no choice but to see me, to value me, to love me the way I had always deserved. I did not know then that some people never learn to love you no matter how brightly you shine. When I was 18 years old, I received a full scholarship to attend a university in California. It was the culmination of years of perfect grades, countless hours of studying and application essays that I rewrote until the words swam before my exhausted eyes. The acceptance letter arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, and I held it in my trembling hands like a golden ticket to another life. I told my parents at dinner that night. "I am going to California," I said. "Full scholarship. They are paying for everything." My mother paused with her fork halfway to her mouth. "California is very far away." My father kept eating, his eyes fixed on his plate. "When do you leave August?" I replied. "Orientation starts the 15th. That was the extent of our conversation about my future. No congratulations, no celebration, no acknowledgement of the achievement that had consumed my entire adolescence. My father grunted something about helping with boxes, but when the day came to leave, he was called into work for an emergency job. My mother drove me to the bus station in the family minivan. Derek sat in the back seat, playing on his handheld gaming device, headphones, blocking out the world. At the station, my mother gave me a brief hug and pressed a folded $20 bill into my palm. "For emergencies," she said. I watched through the bus window as they drove away. Derek waved without looking up from his game. My mother did not look back at all. California felt like landing on another planet. The sunshine was different there, warmer and more golden, and the air smelled like salt and possibility. I arrived at my dormitory with 2 suitcases and a heart full of determination. I would make this work. I would make something of myself. For the next 4 years, I held 3 jobs simultaneously. I waited tables at a diner near campus, serving pancakes to hungover students and coffee to exhausted professors. I tutored freshmen in calculus, spending my Saturday mornings explaining derivatives to students who did not want to be there. I worked as an administrative assistant in the financial aid office filing papers and answering phones and learning the inner workings of money and bureaucracy. I did not receive a single dollar from my family during my entire college career. I paid for my textbooks with tips saved in a mason jar. I bought my winter coat from a thrift store 3 blocks from campus. I ate ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches until I could recite the nutritional information from memory. But I also thrived. I discovered that I had a mind for numbers, a talent for seeing patterns in chaos, and order in complexity. I majored in finance and minored in economics, spending hours in the library, with books that made my classmates groan with boredom, but filled me with electric excitement. I graduated first in my class. The ceremony was held on a sunny Saturday afternoon, and I walked across that stage to collect my diploma while hundreds of strangers applauded. My family did not attend. My mother said they could not afford the plane tickets, though I later learned they had taken Derek to Las Vegas that same month for his 21st birthday. After graduation, I was recruited by a prestigious investment firm in San Francisco. I started as a junior analyst, one of dozens of eager young people in nearly identical suits, all of us desperate to prove our worth. I worked longer hours than anyone. I arrived first and left last. I volunteered for projects that others avoided complicated analyses that required weekend work and sleepless nights. Year by year, I climbed. Analyst became senior analyst. Senior analyst became portfolio manager. Portfolio manager became vice president. Each promotion came with a larger office, a bigger salary, and more responsibility. I invested my money wisely, buying my first property at 26, a small condominium that I renovated on weekends with my own hands. By the time I was 34, I had accumulated a net worth of approximately $3 million. I owned my condominium outright. I had a diversified investment portfolio. I drove a reliable car and wore clothes that fit well and ate at restaurants where the menus did not list prices. I had built the life I had promised myself in that dark bedroom back in Ohio, and I had done it entirely alone. But despite everything, I never stopped trying to connect with my family. I called home every Sunday evening, regardless of where I was or what I was doing. I sent birthday cards with checks inside. I shipped Christmas presents wrapped in expensive paper. I remembered anniversaries and acknowledged milestones and made every effort to remain present in their lives, despite the 3,000 miles between us. My mother rarely called back. When she did answer my Sunday calls, the conversations were brief and distracted, filled with updates about Derek. Derek got a new job. Derek is dating someone. Derek needs help with his car payment. The calls always somehow circled back to Derek, as if he were the sun around which our entire family orbited. Derek himself never reached out. Not once in 16 years did my brother pick up the phone simply to ask how I was doing. I sent him birthday money every October, and the checks were always cashed within days, but I never received a thank you card or a responding call. Still, I kept trying. I sent money home when my parents mentioned that the roof was leaking. I paid for a new water heater when theirs gave out during a cold snap. I covered the cost of repairs when my father's truck broke down. Each time I hoped that my generosity would open a door, would prove my love would finally earn me a place at the family table. The money was always accepted. The gratitude never came. Looking back now, I can see how desperately I was searching for something that did not exist. I was still that 16-year-old girl crying into her pillow over a stolen bicycle, believing that if she just tried hard enough, if she just gave enough, her family would finally see her worth. Some lessons take decades to learn. Derek never quite figured out how to be an adult. At 30 years old, he worked as a salesman at a local car dealership, the same job he had held since dropping out of community college at 22. He was charming enough to close deals, occasionally handsome enough that customers trusted his smile. But he lacked the discipline and drive to excel at anything. He lived in a 2-bedroom apartment that my parents subsidized, paying half his rent each month because Derek always seemed to have unexpected expenses. His car needed repairs, his credit card bills mounted. His lifestyle exceeded his income in ways that mystified me, given that he had no responsibilities beyond feeding himself. My parents never saw a problem with this arrangement. They had raised Derek to expect support, and they continued providing it long after most parents would have required self-sufficiency. He was their baby boy, their golden child, and the rules that applied to me had never applied to him. Then Derek met Meredith. Meredith was 28 years old, blonde and beautiful, with sharp cheekbones and a wardrobe that whispered old money. Her father owned a chain of hardware stores throughout the region. Her mother came from a family that had lived in Ohio since before the Civil War. The Harrington family, as they were known, occupied a social stratum that my family had always observed from a distance. How Derek managed to attract Meredith remained somewhat mysterious to me. Perhaps it was his easy charm, his ability to make people feel special in the moment. Perhaps she saw potential in him that others had missed. Or perhaps, as I later suspected, she simply enjoyed the idea of molding someone into the husband she wanted. Whatever the reason, Meredith and Derek began dating, and suddenly everything changed. My mother called me more frequently than she had in years, though the conversation still centered entirely on Derek. She told me about Meredith's family, their house on the hill overlooking town, the country club membership, the annual trips to Europe. She described Meredith's clothing and jewelry with detailed admiration, as if cataloging items she hoped to someday touch. But there was worry beneath the excitement. The Harringtons, my mother confided, had reservations about Derek. He was not from their world. He had no significant career, no property, no family pedigree that might compensate for his lack of financial stability. Meredith's father had made pointed comments about responsibility and preparation. Meredith's mother had asked with sharp sweetness how Derek planned to provide for their daughter. "He loves her so much," my mother said during one of these calls, her voice tight with anxiety. "But they do not think he is good enough." I listened to these concerns with complicated feelings churning in my chest. Part of me felt vindicated watching Derek encounter the kind of judgment I had faced my entire childhood. Part of me felt sympathy for my brother, who had never been equipped to handle actual expectations. And part of me, the part I tried to ignore, wondered if this was finally an opportunity. If I helped Derek, if I gave him something that would prove his worth to the Harringtons, maybe then finally my family would see me differently. One evening in early spring, my mother called with a specific purpose. "Julia," she began, her voice softer than usual, "I need to talk to you about something important." I set down my glass of wine and gave her my full attention. "What is it Mom? Derek wants to propose to Meredith. He has been saving for a ring, working extra shifts, trying so hard. But you know how the Harringtons are. They expect certain things. They expect him to have a home." "A home," I repeated. My mother took a breath. A man should own property before he asks a woman to marry him. At least that is what Meredith's father believes. And Derek cannot afford to buy a house. Not yet. Maybe not for years. The implication hung in the air between us, unspoken, but unmistakable. My mother was not directly asking me for money. She never directly asked. Instead, she painted pictures of need and waited for me to offer solutions. "What are you thinking, Mom?" I asked, forcing her to say the words. "Well," she said slowly, "you have done so well for yourself, Julia. And I know you love your brother. I just thought maybe there was some way you could help him get started. Not everything, of course, just something to help." I told her I would think about it, and I did. I thought about it for weeks. I consulted my closest friend, Natalie, who had known me since my first year in San Francisco. We had met at a professional development conference, 2 young women trying to navigate the male-dominated world of finance, and we had been inseparable ever since. Natalie knew my family history. She had witnessed my Sunday phone calls, my unreturned gestures of love, my persistent hope against all evidence. "Are you seriously considering this?" Natalie asked when I explained the situation. She was sitting across from me at our favorite wine bar, her expression incredulous. "He is my brother," I said. "He is the same brother who has never called you once in 16 years. The same brother who watched your parents take your bicycle and give it to him. The same brother who did not come to your college graduation or your 30th birthday party or any single significant moment of your adult life." I know, I admitted. "I know all of that." "Then why are you even thinking about buying him a house?" I stared into my wine glass, searching for an answer that made sense. "Because maybe this time it will be different. Because I am tired of being on the outside. Because somewhere inside me, there is still a little girl who wants her family to love her." Natalie reached across the table and took my hand. "Julia," she said gently, "you cannot buy love. Not from people who have shown you over and over that they do not know how to give it." She was right, of course. I knew she was right. But knowing something and feeling something are different continents separated by oceans of hope and hurt. In the end, I decided to do it anyway. I flew back to Ohio on a Wednesday afternoon in April. I told no one except Natalie about my plans, keeping my mission secret until I could present it fully formed. If I was going to do this, I wanted to do it right. I wanted the gesture to be undeniable. For 3 days, I toured properties with a local real estate agent named Sandra, a brisk woman in her 50s, who sensed the urgency of my search without asking unnecessary questions. I viewed split-level ranches and Victorian fixer-uppers, new construction in gated communities, and charming bungalows near the historic downtown. I was looking for something specific, though I could not have articulated exactly what. On the third day, Sandra drove me to a house that stopped me in my tracks. It sat on a quiet street, lined with mature oak trees, their branches reaching toward each other to form a green canopy overhead. The house itself was a traditional 2-story with white siding and black shutters, a covered front porch with a swing and a backyard that stretched toward a small creek. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a renovated kitchen with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. The asking price was $880,000. It was one of the finest homes in the area, the kind of property that the Harringtons would recognize and respect. I bought it with cash. The transaction moved quickly as cash purchases often do. Sandra handled the paperwork with efficient professionalism. I arranged for the deed to be transferred directly to Derek, a gift with no strings attached. The title company noted that Derek would need to complete certain paperwork within 30 days to finalize the transfer, a detail I barely registered at the time. When everything was arranged, I called my mother and asked her to organize a family dinner. "Something special," I said. "I have news." She agreed, her curiosity evident in her voice. 3 days later, I found myself sitting at my parents' dining room table, the same table where I had eaten thousands of meals as a child, waiting for the right moment. My mother had made pot roast, Derek's favorite. My father sat at the head of the table quieter than usual, while Derek made small talk about work and the weather. Meredith was not present. This was family only. After we finished eating, I retrieved a small wrapped box from my purse. I had chosen the wrapping paper carefully, a elegant silver, with a blue ribbon, understated but clearly expensive. My hands trembled slightly as I placed it on the table in front of Derek. "What is this?" he asked, his eyebrows rising. "Open it," I said. Derek pulled the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, lay a single brass key attached to a keychain shaped like a house. Beneath the key was a folded document, the deed transfer paperwork with Derek's name prominently displayed. Derek lifted the key and stared at it, confusion evident on his face. "I do not understand." I took a deep breath. "I bought you a house, Derek. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a beautiful neighborhood. It is worth $880,000, and it is entirely yours. I thought it might help you start your life with Meredith." The room fell completely silent. My mother's hand had frozen halfway to her water glass. My father's jaw hung slightly open. Derek continued staring at the key as if it might bite him. "You what?" my mother finally whispered. I explained again more slowly this time. I described the house, its features, its location, the financial arrangements I had made. I told them I wanted Derek to have a solid foundation for his future. I said that families should support each other. As I spoke, I watched their faces for the reaction I had imagined countless times: gratitude, joy, amazement at my generosity, perhaps even love finally flowing toward me after all these years. What I saw instead was something I could not name. My mother and father exchanged a long glance, communicating in the silent language of couples who have been together for decades. Derek continued staring at the key, turning it over in his hands, like an artifact from another world. The room felt heavy with unspoken words. "Thank you," Derek finally said. His voice was flat, careful, without warmth. "That is quite a gift," my father added. He did not meet my eyes. My mother reached over and touched Derek's arm. "This is wonderful news," she said, but the words sounded hollow, rehearsed. I stayed for another hour, trying to generate the warmth I had expected this evening to bring. I asked Derek about his plans for the house, but his answers were vague. I suggested we visit the property together, but he said he was busy the next few days. When I finally stood to leave, my mother walked me to the door with her arms crossed over her chest. "This was very generous of you, Julia," she said, "but you should have consulted us first. This is a lot to take in." I drove back to my hotel room with a stone in my stomach, replaying the evening in my mind. Something was wrong. Something I could not see clearly. But I told myself it was simply shock that my family needed time to process such an enormous gift. I flew home the next morning, carrying hope wrapped in a blanket of denial. For the first few days after I returned to California, I tried to interpret everything positively. My family was overwhelmed by my generosity. They needed time to adjust. Derek would reach out soon to express his gratitude properly. But the first warning signs appeared almost immediately. I texted Derek the address of the house, offering to connect him with Sandra so she could give him a proper tour. He responded with a single word: "Thanks." I called my mother to ask how Derek was feeling about the gift. She said he was very grateful, then quickly changed the subject to the weather and complained about her arthritis. A week passed, then two. I waited for an invitation to see the house to help Derek and Meredith plan their future in those beautiful rooms. The invitation never came. During my third week back in San Francisco, I happened to be scrolling through social media when I noticed that Meredith had posted a series of photos. They showed the house, my house, the gift I had given to my brother. The caption read, "Touring our new family home. So blessed. So grateful to Derek and his parents for making this dream come true." I read the caption 3 times before the words fully registered. Grateful to Derek and his parents. There was no mention of me, and not in the caption, not in the comments, not anywhere. I immediately called my mother, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Mom," I said, struggling to keep my voice calm. "I saw Meredith's post about the house. She thanked you and Dad. She did not mention me at all." My mother was quiet for a long moment. "Julia," she said finally, her voice careful, "it is complicated. Complicated how the Harringtons are traditional people. They have certain expectations about how things should be done. Derek and Meredith decided it would be better if the house came from the family as a whole. But it did not come from the family as a whole, I said. It came from me. I paid for it. Every penny." Another pause. "I think it would be best if we talked about this later, Julia. Things are very busy right now with the wedding planning." She ended the call before I could respond. A few days later, I found myself at a coffee shop near my office, standing in line and reviewing emails on my phone. A voice interrupted my concentration. "You are Julia, right, Derek's sister." I looked up to find Meredith standing beside me. She was even more striking in person than in photographs. Her makeup flawless, her handbag probably worth more than most people's monthly rent. Her smile had an edge to it, sharp and knowing. "Yes," I replied. "Meredith. Nice to finally meet you in person." She tilted her head, studying me with cool blue eyes. "Derek talks about you sometimes. The successful sister out in California." Something about her tone made the words sound like an accusation rather than a compliment. I forced a smile. "I hope everything is going well with the wedding planning." "Oh, it is," she said. "Very well. We have the venue booked. The caterer selected the flowers ordered. It is going to be absolutely beautiful." "I would love to hear more about it," I said. "Derek has not told me many details." Meredith's smile flickered. "Has he not?" "Well, I suppose he has been very busy. Between work and settling into the new house, he barely has time to breathe." She paused, and something shifted in her expression. "Derek mentioned that you travel a lot for work. California, New York, overseas sometimes. That must make it hard to stay connected with family." "I manage," I said. "I am sure you do." She glanced at her phone. "Actually, I should run. But it was lovely meeting you, Julia. Derek said you probably will not be able to make it to the wedding given your busy schedule. Such a shame." Before I could respond, she had already turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the tile floor. I stood frozen, the line moving around me while her words echoed in my head. Derek said I probably would not be able to make it to the wedding, as if the decision had already been made, as if my absence was a foregone conclusion. I called Derek that night, my hands shaking as I dialed his number. "Julia," he said, his voice wary. "What is going on?" "I need you to tell me about the wedding," I said. "I ran into Meredith today. She said something about me not being able to attend." "Oh, that." Derek sounded uncomfortable. "We are still figuring out the guest list. You know how these things are." "Derek, I am your sister. Am I invited or not?" He did not answer directly. "Things are complicated right now. I will call you back later, okay?" He hung up before I could say goodbye. I sat alone in my apartment that night, staring at the wall, trying to understand what was happening to my family. I had given them everything. I had given Derek a house worth more than most people earn in a decade of hard work, and somehow impossibly, I was being pushed further away. I returned to California carrying a weight I could not name. It pressed on my chest at night and followed me through my days. I threw myself into work, but even the familiar comfort of numbers and projections could not quiet the growing dread inside me. The call came on a Tuesday evening. I had just returned home from a long day at the office, kicking off my heels and pouring myself a glass of wine. My phone buzzed with my mother's name on the screen. I answered without thinking. "Julia." My mother's voice was strange, tight, and formal. "I need to tell you something about the wedding." My stomach clenched. "What about it?" She took a breath. "We have discussed this as a family, and we think it would be best if you did not attend." The words did not make sense. I heard them, but my brain refused to process their meaning. "Excuse me, Derek, and Meredith's wedding is going to be a very important day. The Harringtons will be there, all of their family and friends. Very prominent people. And we have decided that your presence might complicate things." "Complicate things," I repeated. My voice sounded distant, like someone else was speaking through my mouth. My mother sighed, as if I were being deliberately difficult. "Julia, you have done very well for yourself. Everyone knows that. But this is Derek's moment, his chance to impress Meredith's family. If you are there, people will ask questions. They will want to know about the successful sister. It will take attention away from Derek." I could not believe what I was hearing. "So I am being uninvited to my own brother's wedding because I am too successful." "That is not what I said." "That is exactly what you said." A long pause. "There is also the matter of the house," my mother continued. "Derek and Meredith told the Harringtons that it was a family gift from your father and me, a gesture of support for their future together. You told them the house was from you." "We had to." My mother said, her voice rising defensively. "The Harringtons would never accept Derek if they knew his sister had to buy him a home. It would make him look weak. It would make our whole family look like we could not take care of our own. I laughed, though nothing was funny. The sound came out broken. So you took credit for my gift, my $880,000 gift, and now you want to hide me so the lie does not unravel. My mother was quiet. What does Dad think about this? I asked. Your father agrees with me. We have to think about what is best for Derek. Of course you do, I said. You have been thinking about what is best for Derek my entire life. I am his sister, Mom. I should be at his wedding. Julia, please try to understand. I understand perfectly. I hung up before she could say another word. For a long time I sat motionless in my living room, the phone clutched in my hand. Outside my window, the lights of San Francisco glittered like scattered diamonds, beautiful and indifferent. Inside, something was crumbling. I called Derek. He answered on the fourth ring. Julia. His voice was guarded. Did you know about this? I asked. Did you know Mom and Dad were going to uninvite me? Julia, listen. Answer the question, Derek. He sighed. Yes, I knew. And you are okay with it. It is not about being okay with it. He sounded frustrated, as if I were the one being unreasonable. You do not understand what it is like for me, Julia. You have never understood. What do you not think I understand? You have always been the smart one, the successful one, the one who left and made something of herself. Do you have any idea what it is like to be your brother? To have everyone compare me to you, no one compares you to me, I said. Mom and Dad have spent their entire lives making sure you came first. Derek laughed bitterly. You think getting attention is the same as being compared? Every time I fail, every time I struggle, I know people are thinking about how you would have done it better. Perfect Julia. Successful Julia. Julia, who did not need anyone's help. I bought you a house, Derek. A house. I gave you the biggest gift I have ever given anyone because I wanted to help you. You gave me a house to make yourself look good, he snapped. To show everyone how generous you are, how much better you are doing than the rest of us. It was never about me. It was about you feeling superior. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. That is not true. Is it not? You show up after years of barely visiting hand over a deed like you are some kind of fairy godmother and expect everyone to fall at your feet. That house is not a gift. It is a reminder of how much more you have than me. I gave you that house because I love you, I said, my voice breaking. Because you are my brother, and I wanted you to have a good start with Meredith. If you loved me, you would understand why I cannot have you at my wedding. Derek's voice hardened. You showing up would ruin everything. The Harringtons would find out about the house. They would know I could not do it on my own. Meredith would see me differently. Everything I have built with her would fall apart. So I am supposed to disappear to pretend I do not exist, so you can live your lie. It is better for everyone if you just stay away. I closed my eyes. After everything I have done for this family, after every check I sent, every bill I paid, every time I reached out, even when no one reached back, this is what I get. Derek was quiet for a moment. Then he said the words that would stay with me forever. You not being there would be better for all of us. I did not ask to live in your shadow, Julia. Maybe staying away is the best thing you can do for this family. He hung up. I sat in the silence, tears streaming down my face, and finally allowed myself to see the truth I had been avoiding my entire life. My family did not want my love. They did not want my help. They wanted me to be invisible, to exist only as a resource they could tap when needed and discard when inconvenient. I had spent 34 years trying to earn a place at a table where there was never a chair for me. I spent 2 days barely functioning. I called in sick to work, something I had never done in my entire career. I lay on my couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations in my mind. I cried until I had no tears left, then cried some more. On the third day, Natalie came over without asking permission. She let herself in with the spare key I had given her years ago, and found me still on the couch, wearing the same clothes I had worn since Tuesday. "Okay," she said, sitting down beside me. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about my mother's phone call, about Derek's accusations about the house and the lies, and the wedding I was forbidden to attend. I told her how I had given everything I had, every gesture of love I could think of, and received nothing but rejection in return. Natalie listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want to do?" she finally asked. "I do not know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to fly to Ohio and crash that wedding. Part of me wants to disappear and never speak to any of them again. What about the house I blinked? What about it? You gave Derek an $880,000 house. A house he is now using to impress his future in-laws. A house he is pretending came from your parents. Does he deserve to keep it?" The question hung in the air between us. I had not thought about the house as something that could be reclaimed. I had given it freely, expecting nothing in return except love. But love had not come. Only betrayal. I called my lawyer the next morning. Her name was Margaret Chen, and she had handled my financial affairs for nearly a decade. When I explained the situation, she was quiet for a moment before responding. "Let me look into this," she said. "You mentioned the title company required Derek to complete certain paperwork to finalize the transfer." "Yes, within 30 days. Do you know if he completed that paperwork?" I did not know. In the chaos of the past few weeks, I had not thought to check. Margaret said she would investigate and call me back. 2 hours later, my phone rang. "Julia," Margaret said, "I have good news. Derek never completed the required paperwork. The transfer is not fully finalized. There is a provision in the original agreement that allows you to cancel the transfer if the recipient fails to complete the necessary documentation within the specified time frame." My heart began to pound. "So I could take back the house legally, yes. The property would revert to your name. Derek would have no claim to it." I sat in silence, considering what this meant. I could undo my gift. I could reclaim the house that my brother had stolen credit for, that my family had used to deceive the Harringtons, that had become a symbol of everything wrong with my place in this family. "Do it," I said. "Start the process." I composed an email that night, the most difficult piece of writing I had ever attempted. I addressed it to Derek, my mother, and my father. I read it over a dozen times before hitting send. The email explained my decision. I wrote about the house and how I had given it with love and hope. I wrote about learning that they had taken credit for my gift, had used it to deceive others, had uninvited me from Derek's wedding to protect their lie. I wrote that I was reclaiming the property because gifts given with love should not be used for deception. I ended with the hardest words I had ever typed. I have spent my entire life trying to earn a place in this family. I have sent money and made phone calls and offered support that was never reciprocated. I gave you everything I had to give, and you threw it away. I am done trying to prove my worth to people who have never seen it. The house is mine again, and so finally is my self-respect. The responses came quickly. Derek called 17 times in the first hour. I let every call go to voicemail. His messages ranged from furious to pleading to accusatory. How could I do this to him? Did I not understand what this would mean for his relationship with Meredith? I was ruining his life out of spite. My mother sent a text message in all capital letters calling me selfish and cruel. She said I was tearing the family apart. She said I would regret this for the rest of my life. My father called once, something he had almost never done in my entire adult life. His voice on the message was cold. "Julia, this is your father. Your mother told me what you are doing with the house. I do not understand why you would hurt your brother like this. Family is supposed to stick together. I raised you better than this." He had never raised me at all. He had raised Derek while I raised myself. I did not respond to any of them. The legal process moved forward. Margaret filed the necessary paperwork citing Derek's failure to complete the transfer requirements. Within 2 weeks, the house was back in my name. Derek and Meredith's wedding proceeded as planned, though I heard later that things did not go smoothly. Without the house, Derek had nothing to offer except his salary from the car dealership and his charming smile. The Harringtons discovered the truth about the property, somehow perhaps through legal records, or perhaps through the small-town gossip that my family had always underestimated. The wedding was held in a rented hall, instead of the beautiful garden venue Meredith had originally chosen. The guest list was smaller than planned. The Harrington side of the room was notably sparse. I did not attend, of course. I spent that Saturday with Natalie drinking wine and watching old movies celebrating the end of an era I should have let go years ago. The months after Derek's wedding became a period of profound transformation for me. I started seeing a therapist, a calm woman named Dr. Patterson, who specialized in family trauma and emotional healing. In her quiet office, I began unpacking the boxes I had been carrying my entire life. The stolen bicycle, the forgotten birthdays, the phone calls never returned, the love never reciprocated. Dr. Patterson helped me understand that my family's treatment of me was not my fault. I had not failed to be lovable. They had failed to love me the way I deserved. There is a difference, she said, between being unworthy of love and being in a family that does not know how to give it. I also threw myself back into my work with renewed energy. 3 months after the wedding, I was promoted to senior director, one of the youngest people ever to hold that title at my firm. My colleagues threw me a small celebration, and for the first time in my life, I felt genuinely celebrated. I built a new kind of family around me. Natalie remained my closest friend, but I also cultivated relationships with colleagues, neighbors, and people I met through various community activities. I joined a hiking group that explored trails throughout Northern California. I started volunteering at a local animal shelter on weekends. It was at the shelter that I met Biscuit. He was a 3-year-old golden retriever mix with soulful brown eyes and a tail that never stopped wagging. Someone had abandoned him at a gas station tied to a pole with a note that said they could not afford to keep him anymore. When I saw him in his kennel looking up at me with such hopeful trust, something shifted in my chest. I adopted him that same day. He came home with me, claimed a spot on my couch, and proceeded to fill my apartment with a warmth I had not known was missing. Having Biscuit taught me something I had never understood before. Love did not have to be earned. He loved me simply because I was there, because I fed him and walked him and scratched behind his ears. He did not care about my career or my bank account or whether I had proved myself worthy of affection. He just loved me. I began to apply this lesson to myself. I started speaking to myself more kindly, catching the critical voice in my head that still echoed my mother's disappointments. I acknowledged my accomplishments without immediately diminishing them. I allowed myself to rest without guilt. 6 months after the wedding, my mother called. I almost did not answer, but something made me press the green button, some lingering curiosity about what she might say. Julia. Her voice sounded older, tired. I wanted to call and say I am sorry. I was quiet, waiting. Things got out of hand, she continued. Your father and I, we should not have asked you to stay away from the wedding. It was wrong. And the house I asked. Taking credit for my gift. Lying to the Harringtons. My mother was silent for a long moment. I do not know what you want me to say, Julia. We were trying to help Derek. You were trying to help Derek, I repeated. You have always been trying to help Derek. The question is, have you ever tried to help me? She did not have an answer. Mom, I said I appreciate you calling, I really do. But an apology is not the same as change. You have spent my entire life putting Derek first, and even now your apology is about what happened with him, not about what you have done to me for 34 years. That is not fair. Is it not? I took a breath. I love you, Mom. I will probably always love you. But I cannot keep being the person who gives everything and receives nothing. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be different. You have to see me as your daughter, not just as Derek's sister. The conversation ended without resolution. My mother said she would think about what I had said. I told her that was all I could ask, Derek never called. I heard through various channels that his marriage to Meredith was struggling. The Harringtons had never fully accepted him, and without the house to prove his stability, he was constantly working to prove his worth. The irony was not lost on me. As for the house itself, I sold it 6 months after reclaiming it. The real estate market had risen, and I received $940,000 for the property. I donated a significant portion to scholarship funds for first-generation college students, young people who, like me, would have to build their futures without family support. The rest, I invested in my own future. A year after everything fell apart, I found myself sitting on my balcony one evening, biscuit curled at my feet, watching the sun set over the San Francisco skyline. I thought about everything I had lost, the family I had always wanted, the brother who had never been a brother to me, the parents who had never learned to see me. But I also thought about everything I had gained, my self-respect, my understanding that I was worthy of love without having to buy it, my community of chosen family, my dog who wagged his tail every time I walked through the door. I had given away $880,000, and I had gotten it back. But the real gift was not the house. The real gift was finally understanding that I had never needed to prove anything to anyone. My worth was not determined by my parents' approval or my brother's acceptance. My worth was determined by me. If you have made it this far in my story, I want to thank you for listening. I know it was a long journey, but some stories need to be told in full to make sense. I want to ask you something. Have you ever given everything to someone who could not see your value? Have you ever loved people who did not know how to love you back? If so, I hope my story gives you permission to step away, to choose yourself, to build a family that chooses you in return. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your experiences matter to me. If this story touched you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you have not already, consider subscribing to join this community of people who believe that we all deserve to be seen and loved. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I wish you peace, I wish you healing, and most of all, I wish you the courage to know your own worth.